Welcome back to the Dynamic Sound Lab. This is the series where I experiment with new, dynamic, interactive, and adaptive music and sound design, and just take you along for the journey as I experiment. In the last video, we created a simple adaptive music system in Wwise that essentially had an exploration track, a combat track, and transitions to connect the two. Which I consider to be the bare minimum level of interactivity that I'd want. Something going to something else, having a smooth transition. But we don't just want to do the bare minimum. All right, now we're gonna really go down the rabbit hole and see what ways we can make this music even more interactive and dynamic to the player controls, mainly using real-time parameter controls. The previous version featured a horizontal branching system where I'd have one piece of music, some transition segments, and another piece of music, and a lot of the interactivity came from the fact that it would switch to the next piece of music, the next measure, after someone like saw an enemy, for example, and then transition would happen, boom, straight into combat. Now the music is going to be much more vertical, and it's going to feature different layers that can be triggered by in-game events in real time, such as your proximity to enemies, or the number of enemies you're fighting, the intensity of the combat, all of that good stuff, which is going to make it a bajillion times more adaptive to what the player does and give them that instant feedback that we want. Let's see what that looks like in action. All right, so let's check out the session. I have the same things that I had last time. I have my exploration music segments inside of a playlist here. The only difference is they're now set up as switch tracks so that I could assign them to different parameters. So I've got my combat with all of its different intensity levels, as well as the player health, my exploration with all of its different intensity levels, player health, and a secrets nearby one. I've got my transitions into combat with their in points and end points set here to make it so they can overlap smoothly, just like they did in the previous demo. All right, but all the good stuff now is that in the game syncs here, I have combat intensity parameter set to either high intensity, low intensity, medium intensity. So we're gonna have 3 different kind of levels of intensity for our combat during the combat section. For exploration, we're gonna have proximity to enemies, and so it's gonna be, if there are no enemies nearby, we're gonna get the most droning exploration track that we can. And then when we're kind of close to enemies, different melodies gonna fade in, and then when we're really close to melodies, we're gonna have everything coming in. And then I have a secret nearby, so if we're like exploring and we're near a secret, vibraphone's gonna come in and give us a nice extra melody on top. I've got those all linked up to events so that I can play it in my Soundcaster. All right, so my Soundcaster, I've got my start game, which is gonna just start our game, and that's gonna start with the exploration. And the exploration's in green here. You can see I've got no enemies near, enemies kind of near, and enemies close. I just created these events to the different parameter values, so no enemies near is going to be the low one. So I could do that up here as well in the proximity to enemies by just changing this slider, but making it a switch just makes it a little nicer. All right, and then we've got the same thing with combat intensity. I have a stinger that I added for when an enemy spots you, which is going to be a vroom, and then we're going to be into it. All right, so I'm just going to run through the system here, and you can kind of see some of these options here. All right, and then we're exploring again. The last parameter that I added beyond all of these is a player health one. And so when your player is just walking around and doing stuff, he's not going to have any, change in his health. It's going to sound normal. But it's set up to this one here, this value here, that every time he takes damage, that's going to go down. And if it gets below 50, this is going to start coming in. It's at 100, so nothing's happening. All right, so if I make it, I'm going to do it down here. Because it's healthier. And then once it's above 50, we don't hear it anymore. So let's check out kind of back in the Soundcaster what that would sound like. So we take some damage. Alright, and so that's where the system is so far. Thanks for checking out this video and the demo. The next video in this series is going to be me attaching all of this music into an actual Unreal Engine session so that we can trigger things within an actual game, which I'm currently learning Unreal right now, so hopefully that will come together nice and smoothly.